Good afternoon. Good morning. Oh my gosh. So I didn't sleep well last night. I'm going to apologise now in case I talk absolute random words that make no sense. It happens sometimes. If any of you saw my talk last year, we can blame generalised anxiety on that. I just didn't sleep. So today I'm here to talk to you about stereotypes, role models and learning to code. Many of you may have seen lots of publicity about the fact that there are less and less women, teenagers, getting involved with computer science courses. Lots of questioning why. And I'm here to hopefully give us some ideas for what we can do to make sure that we're not falling off the radar, that women are feeling comfortable and ready to get involved with computer science. So I'm going to start off with an apology. Programming has an image problem. Since the 80s, when the first home computers were manufactured, the advertising was very much geared at men. Let's look at boys playing on a computer at home. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of stereotypes about computer scientists, this being one of them. And there's sort of this idea that you're not cool if you're a computer scientist. And unfortunately, that's become very, very popular, which means that girls in particular just don't want to be involved. I can use myself as an example. When I was 15, I loved coding. I wanted to learn how to do stuff, but then I was like, no, I'm uncool enough as it is. I do theatre, I like maths, I can't add another thing onto the uncool hat. And also the teachers in my school weren't exactly inspiring and exciting or innovative. They were middle-aged men who encouraged the boys. So there is this sort of image issue. Now, before this talk, I did a little bit of research, and I did a Google search for using a computer. Good, isn't it? Spot the women. There's one.
Back of the head.
Yeah, you can see her.
Two top left.
Top left.
Three bottom in the right.
So if you are using a computer, of those 12 photos, 9 of them have no women whatsoever, and the other 3 have a small amount of females using it. So obviously the typical image of someone using a computer is a boy. And then I did another search because, you know, I like to look things up.
There's one black person, and he's the President of the United States.
True. Former, sadly. I'd like the guy in the middle as well. I'm using a computer. So I carried on and I thought, okay, let's do a search for computers for boys. Let's be more specific. Look at them all. Are they having fun? They're all using their computers. They're smiling. They're in groups. Or, well, they're using them at the very least. The contrast is quite interesting when you do the same search but add 4 girls. Oh, hello, computer. I noticed a few people around the room there nearly threw up. That was what I felt like. And I thought, no, surely that isn't the case. But genuinely, this was a week ago I did the search. Computers for boys. Computers for girls. Isn't that scary? And this is what Google's algorithm tells us are computers for girls. There's definitely an issue there. So then I thought, okay, let's go for the kill. Let's go for famous computer programmers. There is a woman in there. Bless her, you scroll down and she appears about 30 times. She is the only one who does anything, because she works on Assassin's Creed. I mean, you can see, looking at that, why teenage girls aren't necessarily getting excited about computer science. We live in the 21st century, and your average teenage girl's looking at Instagram, they're looking at YouTube, they're looking at their celebrities they look up to, they're looking at icons that they see. They look at computer science, and again, of those images, the majority of them are bearded middle-aged men. Apologies again to people in the audience who that applies to. But I hate to say it, as a teenage girl, that's not someone you want to be when you're grown up, necessarily. You might. In fact, there was a really interesting tweet recently. Someone posted that their daughter had signed up for a computer science lecture at university, and they turned up, or it was either college or university, they turned up and were told, you were the only girl in the group, so we moved you to home economics. there's a lot of interesting things going on in the world at the moment to do relating with girls. And in fact, the girl turned around and said, no, I want to do this computer science course. And if I have to, I'll go and find a friend to join me. But it's just frightening that that seems to be a gut reaction at the moment in some places. And then you have, so I'm a teacher, I'm a former teacher, I'm part of lots of technology groups, and we see this, okay, name some inspirational women in tech. And you get the list. Ada Lovelace, first woman programmer. Yeah. Margaret Hamilton. Yeah. Grace Hopper. When did they do their stuff? Well, Ada Lovelace was 160 years ago, so she's a real contemporary role model. Margaret Hamilton, Grace Hopper is the 60s and 70s. Admittedly, I'm going to say the wrong one now. One of them is still publicising, talking, doing events, and is in her hundreds. Is it great? Yeah, I get confused. But again, a teenage girl is going to look at these people and see them as old-time people. They're not their contemporaries. We need to be looking at positive role models that are here and now, like the lady who helped make Assassin's Creed. We need to be spotlighting women so that girls can see that it is for them. I have been saying now for quite a while that one of the reasons that girls aren't taking up computer science necessarily is because they don't see people their age or see people that they can look up to, that they could see as a hero. They don't see them in the public eye. You'll see the men, you'll see Steve Jobs, you'll see some other people. I've had a complete brain freeze, but you'll see all these people that aren't there. But there are role models that the girls can look up to. There are people there. I may have watched Black Panther recently. I don't know if you've seen this film, but one of my favourite things about it is this character, Cherie, is the techno goddess who basically just fixes everything and makes it really cool. And what's quite interesting is Letitia Wright, who plays her, has admitted that she doesn't particularly know anything about tech, but now, having played this role, she wants to learn. She wants to get involved with coding. She wants to be part of this community. I mean, if that's not inspiring to young people, not only do they see her in the film prodding buttock, as we say in polite circles, she's an awesome character, but the actress herself is willing to get involved and willing to promote this image. And it's nice to see a character that's not a damsel in distress, let's be honest. You do get an awful lot of film characters where the girl runs around screaming and the boys fix the world. And then there are some real world heroes. I'm going to mention a few people here that I personally look up to. And I'm starting off with Aveen, who is just turned 12, so I had to change my slides because it was her birthday on Wednesday. And I've met Aveen. I met her last year at the Digital Girl of the Year Award, European Digital Girl of the Year Award in Belgium. And Aveen started off campaigning to her local MP because there was no broadband in rural Ireland. And she said it wasn't fair that her peers, her classmates, couldn't access the 21st century, basically. She does talks. She's spoken to the PM of Ireland. She's spoken around the world now. And she also runs workshops. She helps with coding workshops around Ireland. She's so enthusiastic and passionate while still being a 12-year-old girl. So she takes her baby brother out for walks and things, and she's just a normal girl who happens to have a passion for this kind of stuff. That's a role model to me. She's involved. I've got Avi, who lives near me in London, and she did a Kickstarter. She did a fundraiser to be able to run workshops and give free microbits to all the girls that came along. Now, I'm in two minds about girls-only workshops, I have to admit, but it was a really lovely event that she organised as a young lady. She invited girls aged 7 to 14 to come along. She organised workshop presenters, speakers. I actually went and did a talk about mental health to these girls aged 7 to 14 because that's what Avi wanted at her day, Young Coders Day. She's regularly running workshops around Richmond, around London, further afield where necessary, and she went to Coolest Projects last year, which is an event organised by Coder Dojo and Raspberry Pi Foundation, and she won the Best Hardware Project. You know, there probably would have been hundreds of projects by boys and a couple by girls. She won it. That's inspiring. got some of the more grown-up people. I don't know how many of you have met Tanya. Tanya works with Pomeranian and she is awesome. She also very recently got an ASD diagnosis, so autistic spectrum disorder. So not only is she a techie woman who's talking about all the cool things she's doing, she's also talking about her recent ASD diagnosis and how she struggles sometimes to cope, which is just so inspiring for people with ASD, for women, for anybody interested in tech world. And I mean, what I love about Tanya's projects is, one of my favourite ones she's done is she's just made little stick-on nails that have got NFC chips in, so they light up when you go near an NFC reader. That's just something that, if you're a girly girl, you can get involved with tech, but have a bit of fun with. And then her projects sort of expand. She made these cute little bearables, they're called, the Pomeranian cell. And they're just little LED badges, and you can sew them onto your clothing, but you can also hack into them and change the light signals and things like that. Little things to get people interested. So yeah, that's another one of my modern day role models I think more girls need to know about. It's like a who's next, I don't know. Rachel is going to be here sometime this weekend. You'll probably bump into her, you can't miss her. She loves her pinks. She's definitely a pink girl. And there is this kind of idea that if you are into coding, you're not going to be a girly girl. There is that sort of essence that girls who do it can't be girly as well. Well, you know. I think Rachel is the person who really clearly states that you can be girly and techie. She's a scientist, she's a biologist. And she also makes glittery wearables. And everything has to be pink. She recently created a learn to solder kit. And it's just pink fluffy kitty ears that you attach an LED strip to and then solder the battery pack on. So it's a nice simple get started kit, but it involves craft. And she's developing her line of things. And it's all very fluffy. It's not in-your-face pink girly, but it is pink, purples, blues, pastels, greens, nice colours that sometimes might be more interesting to some people than others. With Rachel, she's quite happy to talk about her mental health problems. She's very passionate about talking when she's having highs, when she's having lows, when she's struggling. And I think that's really useful to have those role models who are who are willing to talk about anything that they're facing. Lorraine was going to be here today, but she's unable to make it. And some of you might have seen Lorraine's Cubit. It's it's an 8x8 neopixel cube. Each one's inside a ping pong ball, and then it's powered by microbits, and they're each individually programmable. And it's just, I don't even know how to describe Cubit, but it's incredible. It's this incredible feat of engineering and coding. And Lorraine actually makes a lot of resources. She's quite passionate about coming up with projects that children can make, that new programmers can make. And again, to me, that's a role model. Somebody who is just getting out there and doing cool things all of the time. I've got one more on this list, and then I've got lots of other people to talk about. She says, hoping the slide works. Samathy. You'll see Samathy at some point in the next few days, I'm sure. She's always at PyCon. She's one of my icons. Every time I see her, I'm like, yeah. And Samathy is an openly transgender developer. And that's another sort of role model we need out there. People who are not necessarily the norm. And Samathy comes to events, talks about programming. She talks about what she's doing. She talks about being a developer. But she also talks about being a transgender woman and what that means. And that, I think, is important. Having those role models. Having people that we can look up to. I really could go on. There are people in this room right now. I'm looking at Claire, I'm looking at Celine, I'm looking at Georgina. These people who are doing wonderful things, who need sort of their flags waving all of the time. There are people like Rihanna Pratchett, daughter of the late Terry Pratchett, who writes the stories for computer games. You know, she's involved heavily in the computer games industry. Not enough being done to raise her. Linda Liukas, I can never pronounce her name. She writes children's books to introduce computational thinking. They're aimed at 5 to 7-year-olds. They are beautiful. If you ever get a chance, if you have children in your life somewhere, buy those books, because I quite like. They've got a lovely story, and then loads of activities at the end that are designed for parent, guardian, and child to do together. And she's just started doing YouTube videos about them. Simone Gertz. You know, she's making robot videos. Carrie Ann Philbin. There are so many of these inspirational women doing wonderful things. But my question is, how many of them have you heard of? I mean, there's a lot of women in this room compared to your average developer talk. But if I could say now, on a show of hands, how many of the people I've talked about, you know, use your fingers to show me roughly how many you've heard of. So if you've heard of all of them, you can put all 10 up. Yeah, we're getting 1s and 2s, maybe 5s, 4s. So, I mean, yeah. It's interesting. Those women are doing wonderful things, but they're not being necessarily pushed fully into the limelight. They could be so much more well known. And there's something else that you may have noticed about all of the women I talked about. And that is, she says, they're already talking and presenting at events. We're already going to events. We're standing up. We're doing things. They're confident women. At least confident enough to stand up and talk. But that's not necessarily the case. It's not just that there aren't enough female role models in the public eye. There's also this sort of situation where perhaps the female role models don't feel like they should be in the public eye. There's a sort of feel. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the first time I spoke at an event, I had to almost be physically manhandled onto the stage. It was a case of, please, can you come and talk for us? And I spent about a week saying, no, I'm not good enough. No, I don't want to hear a woman talk. And, you know, I'd like to suggest that perhaps that is quite common. Women wouldn't naturally put themselves forward to speak at an event. They wouldn't believe that people would want to listen to them. I wouldn't believe that people would want to listen to me. We don't necessarily feel valued. There's the wonderful tweet, I don't know if Instagram post this week that's making headlines. There was a young lady who works as a Victoria's Secrets model, but she's also a developer and a very, very accomplished one at that. And so one of the many sites promoting role models put an Instagram picture of her saying, you know, she's a developer, blah, blah. The immediate response was, I bet she can just about do Hello World. It was embarrassing to see. And, I mean, to be fair to her, she jumped on and eventually said, well, actually, here are my credentials, here is what I do, back off. And that was really nice because there's been an outpouring then of other women joining in and saying, thank you for normalising it. Because, unfortunately, you hear of a women programmer, immediately they're questioned. Are you actually any good? Do you know anything? You know, you've got boobs, you can't know anything. Sorry, excuse my language there. PyCon UK, in all fairness, is one of the most inclusive events I've ever been to, and I've never felt embarrassed about speaking here. So we're fortunate to be in this space where we can stand up and we can share. And I've put imposter syndrome on there. If you guys don't know what that is, you probably have suffered from it at some point, that belief that you are not good enough, that you don't deserve any of the good things you've got in your life, and someone's going to realise that you're an imposter, that you're a fake. And that is it's more common in women. So they've looked into it and it is more common in women. So women won't put themselves forward to talk necessarily. So what can we do? Very, very simple. We need to identify women who are doing inspiring things and encourage them to talk. Because, I mean, even submitting this talk, I was thinking to myself, oh, well, no one's going to want to hear me talk. You need that extra. If you think someone's doing amazing things, you should be saying to them, I think you should be talking at an event. I think you should be putting yourself forward at a conference. I think you should be tweeting about this, writing blogs about this. Even if you're organising an event, asking women, saying to a woman you know who is doing great things, could you come and talk for us? Because then that gives, certainly for me, it gives me that feeling of, oh, you mean you are interested in what I have to say? I am okay to talk. When you see a woman do a talk, consider how you would treat a man if they'd done the same talk. Don't come and assume they know less than you. Sorry guys, but that happens. We've all heard of mansplaining. It's real. Having been the victim of it, it's real. And make sure that any woman you see doing a talk feels valued, because, in fact, anybody you see doing a talk, if you've enjoyed their talk, take that time to say thank you. I appreciate the effort you've put in, because it's not just women, it's any of us who stand up here. We will leave the room thinking to ourselves, oh God, everybody hates me. Oh God, that went terribly. Oh God, even if it was a perfectly smooth and interesting talk, that will be the back of mind thought for a lot of us. So I've probably got about 2 minutes left because I tend to talk too much. I want to know a couple of things. Firstly, do you have any ideas for how we can help promote female role models? And secondly, whether you have anything you would like to ask me while I'm here. Now, I've had the audience tools on. And I have got a couple of questions, although one of them isn't a question. But thank you, it's very kind. So one of the points someone's mentioned here is people who come to these kind of talks already agree, and I think that is a problem. I would say most of you are here because you already want to support gender diversity, make sure that we've got ideas for what to do, and that's difficult. And I guess if we can keep promoting these positive role models, that's the best way we can deal with it, and just keep highlighting inspiring, interesting women so that teenage girls can start to see actually programming is for anybody. It's not just a boys' club. I have to say it's lovely to see the fact that this room has got so many women in it. And I realise that that's probably down to the nature of the talk, but it's still very nice to see. And how do we measure success in tech gender diversity? That's a difficult one. I'm not sure how we would measure success, if I'm honest with you. I guess if we can see women going into tech, whether that be as adults or see people taking up courses. At the moment, we want more girls to be taking up GCSE computer science even. So we've got Claire, who's our new teacher for computer science. That would be a good way to measure it. But hopefully we'll just start to see a more balanced workforce as time goes on. Any more questions? Because I don't want to overrun and I know it's break soon.
I have an idea.
Oh, excellent.
We have questions though, please.
Well, I was asked for ideas.
No, I asked for ideas. I did. Yeah, sorry, Peter. I'm being different. It's me. I've gone against your rules. Sorry.
There's this idea that coding is about writing complicated software. And there's another idea, which is coding is about writing software that is easy to use and useful.
Yes, yeah.
And I have a friend who started as a mathematician, worked as a standard software engineer, and is now an international expert, and she's now an international expert in usability. And her role is making things like digital services, government digital services, sorry I'm giving you a talk, actually delivers value.
Yeah, so not realising it's not just about complex code, but it's making things useful.
Yeah, it's making useful stuff.
Fabulous. Any further questions, comments, ideas? Got lots of ideas. Peter, I'll let you pick. You've got microphones.
Is that working?
Yeah.
Hello. So what do you think about, would it help to have role projects as well as role models? So here's a cool thing you can build, as well as here are the people who build it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be a really good idea. Anything that promote, and especially, again, role projects that have been made by women, perhaps, to be able to say, look, this is a cool project, you don't just have to be a boy to do that. Any more?
2 more short points.
Woo.
Thank you for your talk. So to emphasise your point about encouraging women to participate and to give talks, a colleague of mine talking about her experience learning to code in her 40s. I was that person that dragged her to submit, to no, Susie, come do it, it'll be fine, you're going to have a great audience. So that's a plug, everybody, on Tuesday afternoon, Susan Schindler's all about learning to code in your 40s.
Do it.
Come to it. So my question is, you gave a sense of perhaps some slight uncomfortableness with gender-exclusive events. Could you explore that a bit with us?
So there are lots of girls only coding events, which on the one hand, the reason behind that is because some girls wouldn't feel comfortable in a mixed gender event. Also, there's evidence to suggest that boys take over when they're at a coding event. They don't necessarily know what they're doing, but it's a natural instinct. So, on the one hand, I don't like the idea of exclusivity. I don't like this separation, because in the real world we don't do that. But at the same time, I can understand why there's a need for it at a young age in order to help young ladies get comfortable in the first instance. So it's sort of almost a catch-22 situation. You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you do gender exclusive events, then you're being exclusive. But if you don't, then the girls might not be willing to participate or might be pushed to one side unless they're particularly bossy. Not like me at all. Okay. There was one more, wasn't there?
Yeah, I have a housemate who's come over from Croatia, and she's taken an interest in like a Python online course. But a local boot camp costs about £6,000. It's priced out of her ability to get in, despite various scholarships. What resources, what courses might be available that I can come home and give those to her as a way.
I have to say, Claire's going to be the best person to answer
Where's
this.
she from?
Originally Croatia.
Okay, we don't have any in Croatia.
She's here. She's staying with me in Manchester now.
There you go.
Oh, for how long?
Indefinitely.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Thank you.
The reason I asked Claire to do that is, in her past life, before she became a teacher, Claire did a lot of work with women groups in Manchester, so she's basically godlike genius when it comes to that. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you very much for coming along, and see you all later.